Peace and love, fam. Welcome to the channel. It's your boy Monte. You know what it is. You know what I do. You know how I get down. All right, let's get into what it is we're going to talk about. We're talking about today's sexual freedom. We're talking about why the male and female are not created equal when it comes to the ability and the desire of nature to allow these two representatives of nature's human species to engage in the reproduction of that species. All right, we're talking about nature. We're not talking about anything that is culturally acceptable. We're not talking about a moral aspect of sexuality. We're not talking about the ethical aspect of relationships. We're just talking about nature, and we're talking about sexual freedom, and we're talking about sexual reproduction. And we're not talking about it from the point of view, again, of someone just trying to have sex with many individuals. We're talking and looking at it from the perspective of the reproduction of the species. So the male and female are not created equal when it comes to sexual freedom, and nature has ordained that for a specific reason, guys. Now, let me explain to you clearly. So before you jump off and start that chauvinistic and all that foolishness, we're not talking in that term. I'm not talking as if the male is greater and the female is weaker. I'm not talking about if the male should be able to do this, the female should be able to do that. We're talking about nature, and we're talking about the design of the individuals, design of the male and female species, and why the male is able to have sexual freedom while the female is not designed to have the same type of sexual freedom, although in this society it has been accepted and it has been made to be able to happen. Without those devices that have recently been invented, I'm talking about the condoms, I'm talking about the implants, I'm talking about the birth control pills, all those things that stop the natural responses of the physiology from the male and female engaging in sexual activities, the female will not be able to do what the male can do without the consequences of pregnancy, without the consequences, and we're talking about a healthy woman, consequences of pregnancy, without the consequences of a weakened immune system, and without the consequences of succumbing to STDs a lot more easier than the male. And I'll break this down to you clear. Now, the male can engage in sexual freedom 365 days a year, and he can reproduce, if he's healthy, 365 days a year. Now, he can engage in sexual activity with multiple partners, many women, as long as not succumb to anything that's going to weaken its immune system, and not succumb to STDs if those women are not engaged with other men in sexual activity. He has nothing to worry about if those women are only monogamous with him. And again, we're not talking about a moral aspect. We're talking about the actual sexual freedom of the female and the male as it is put forth by nature. All right, so don't get into this emotional and this looking at it from a cultural and ethical type of aspect. Listen to what I'm saying clearly. You can disagree with it, but you can't deny that this is a fact right here. Again, now, if the woman or if the women that he's engaged with sexually are engaged with other men sexually without any protection, then it's guaranteed that both of them are likely to come down with an STD. Now, let's flip that. If the woman, if she's engaged sexually with multiple men, none of these man-made devices to stop the natural processes of the physiology, she will likely become pregnant with no doubt. She will also weaken her immune system, and she will become more susceptible to STDs, and she's almost ensured that she's going to get an STD even if those men are not having sex with other women. If she's having sex with multiple men, and multiple men are she's allowing the sperm of those multiple men to come into her system, she will become a diseased individual, and this just is a fact. Reason being, the male sperm, when it comes up the penis out and coming through the penis, it takes on what is called a anti-immune suppressant property, meaning that when it is ejaculated into the woman, into the female, it takes on a property that knocks the female's immune system back. It suppresses her immune system because her immune system jumps up to fight this foreign entity that is entering into her, because sperm is a foreign entity entering into her. Now, what happens is once, or if she's having the same sexual relationship with that one guy, then her immune system doesn't rise up. Therefore, the sperm doesn't knock it back and weaken her immune system and weaken her immunity, because her body now recognizes that this is a sperm coming from a source that I recognize. So the immune system will not jump up. Now, when she's receiving sperm from multiple men, her immune system is jumping up, and those men's sperm is knocking that immune system back. Her immune system becomes weaker. She is more susceptible to any disease, and she is more susceptible to STDs. We'll break these things down on the board. Again, we're not talking about anything more. We're not talking about anything ethical. We're not talking about the man is greater or the man should be having sex with multiple women. We're talking about the ability to engage in these behaviors, and we'll get deeper into why it is that these things are allowed, as it is required, or as it is a part of the reproduction of the species from the nature. We're not talking about as we have raised up and become moral, ethical, and have engaged in the ideology of what is acceptable and not acceptable when it comes to relationships, etc. All right, so we'll be back on that. Peace.